Hello everyone, KJ here. It is Monday and it is in the afternoon, which is very rare that I pop on here like I do. As many of you know, I've got the advanced settings on here, and also I haven't been keeping my videos up for very long. I'm trying to taper off. Also, I will be sharing some throwbacks here and there of all the catalog that's set on private. One or the other, sooner or later, there'll be different ones that will take you back to memory lane if you've been following this channel at any time. Currently, at the moment, I have been gearing up for the Chad Daybell trial, going through some different files, and also looking at some of the things that have been talked about this week. And y'all know me. Y'all know that at some point or another, OKJ's going to look at some unrelated thing and try to apply it to this upcoming trial. Y'all know application has been an important thing for me. Yes, we talked about other cases, but the bottom line is, you know, we all know what we're doing here, right? Hello, Kathy Gregg. Hello, Stephanie Willow, Hope Grace, Dee Dee Sunshine, Teresa. Hello, y'all. Surprise, surprise. But anyway, so it's come to my attention through several people, and also listening to Difficult Research with Kresha K. Easton last night, that everyone is talking about now the underbelly, which I have claimed. Y'all, I've claimed it. I've claimed that I have seen, spiritually speaking, the underbelly of all this shit that's went on for the last 4 years. And I said, well, some people are like, well, KJ, that's an awful strong statement to say that you've seen the evil. You know, we've all seen the evil, right? Well, I'll tell you what, y'all. I looked at this stuff going on with Jody Hillebrand and Ruby Franke. We did not have this information before. We knew what the probable cause affidavit in their case was saying in terms of child abuse, whether it was kicking a child or throwing them into a cactus or holding their head underwater or whatever. And it was awful. It was disgusting. It was terrible. And we all talked about how this was going to be so traumatic for these children. And them being able to seek help through their trauma of the child abuse that was inflicted upon them. Folks, I saw Jody Hillebrand when they pulled her out the front door in that video, when they made her stand there with her phone, and the whole long period of time that she stood there with that phone. Folks, I'm telling you, it hit me like a ton of bricks. This woman, Jody Hillebrand, she absolutely knew what was going on, and she also could not believe that the dark canes of the world, i.e. in their world, law enforcement, was going to bust their ass. And she acted like, oh, they're disrupting us, child abusing these children. It's like it was just a terrible thing for her that they were going to get in the middle of what, y'all? This is just my opinion. Law enforcement got in the way of Jody Hillebrand and Ruby Franke. Spiritually, y'all, I'm not shitting you. They were causing those children pain for a lower purpose, not a higher purpose. They needed to have that pain from those children in order to feed those damn demons in them. Make no mistake, y'all. If you look at anyone that's ever committed murder, child abuse, whatever, that is a terrible, atrocious crime, 9 times out of 10, y'all, you can look at their life and see how it was always enveloping them. They had to find that pain. They had to find that misery, because that's what demons feed off of. Hello, Beach Lady, D. Faye McDonald, Grammy B. Y'all, I'm looking at these journal writings of Ruby Franke, And it's so much worse than I even expected. Y'all, my initial reaction was Jody Hillebrand was the freaking head of the serpent on all this. That Jody was the one that brainwashed Ruby. Y'all, Ruby Franke is despicable. You know, we talk about, well, how in the hell could we really be that much more mad at Chad Daybell when it was Lori's kids that got murdered? And here I am thinking, well, Jody caused this to Ruby Franke. And we saw it. A lot of us did. When she got arrested, the fact that she stared off into space, she wouldn't speak. Folks, these people, they want to bleed the dragon, don't they? They want to get as much money from that terrible government, whether it's local, state, or federal. But they all have one thing in common. They have no absolute respect for authority. And authority in this world is law enforcement and the laws on the books. And they can't stand that. They want to do what they're doing and think that they're going to somehow get away with that. So I'm looking at these, and I just want to go through them, and I absolutely want to try to apply what these journal writings could possibly mean. Y'all, this was July 23rd of 2023. How long had this been going on? We know Lori was arrested in March of 2020. These people, there's so many similarities that it's almost scary for me to even talk about, because again, y'all, these are my opinions and they might be a little kooky, but the bottom line is I think we all get a little kooky here and there when it comes to these damn assholes out here killing people, murdering people in the name of religion. July 23rd of 2023, to begin a separation from evil, says Ruby. A separation from evil. She's writing this down in her journal. Towards God. To begin a separation from evil towards God. What is she saying here? Is this about herself? Or is this about her life sucks and so she wants to take it out on her own kids? All the darkness needs exposed to the light. Doesn't that sound so, truthful? We need to expose the darkness. Why isn't she looking at the darkness in her own black heart? Why isn't she doing that? And once the lies and sin is revealed, the body must engage in God's work. Somebody needs to get in a room with that woman. And, they don't have to physically do anything to her, although I'd love to punch her in the face. Which, by the way, the last live stream that I shared with y'all, basically venting, I said a few things about taking Chad behind the barn there, and I thought, well, that's just me being angry and violent. I better take that offline, right? But she says, and the good works needs to be painful. Since when does that? Does anybody on here think that good works, doing something good for other people? What did Lori and Chad do for other people? What, Lori went over to, what was her name? What is it, Christina Atwood, maybe? And gave her $1,000 to help her family? What else did Lori and Chad do? What kind of good works? Good works needs to be painful. Good works is in their minds, Jody, Ruby, and the rest of these kooky ass cult people, that good works includes causing children pain. That's good works. Or maybe I'm misunderstanding it. Maybe she's saying that it's good works needs to be painful. Otherwise, the service becomes another feel-good distraction. Well, I'll tell you what, that's all that Chad and Lori were. It was all just a feel-good distraction from reality. And they knew what reality was. They knew that they were just normal, everyday people, just like anybody else, but they wanted to be the king and queen of the 144,000. And so their lives were just hab-drab. Lori, what was Lori up to, by the way? Was she going to go back into cutting hair
I mean, what was she going to do to bring her life into a better state? Oh, go to the one thing she always knew. When she couldn't get her own shit together, she just latches onto a man, and in this case, a frumpy dumpy guy that ain't got nothing. Really, according to Tammy Daybell's sister, Samantha Williams, he had nothing to offer, Lori.
Or did he? A day of fasting and prayer for me after learning my children have been spawns of Satan. Now, is that just being facetious? Or does she really believe that her own flesh and blood, those children are part of her? They're also part of Ruby Frankie's husband there, Kevin, which, by the way, I mean, y'all give me a break. That man was gone over a year, and he wants to sit in that police station and say, and maybe it's true, I believe it, that he didn't know what was going on. He should have been absolutely looking at himself and saying, what kind of father am I to just not have any contact with my own children? It was so easy for Jody and Ruby to do what they did to those children because that man, that father, that husband to Ruby didn't do shit. He's too busy working on himself. Isn't it just like these people? Don't they always? It's always about working on yourself, and don't get me wrong. I believe in self-care. I believe in caring about yourself and trying to do the right things to make yourself a better person. But you can't, I can't. I don't know about you. I can't put my self-care above my children. I can't. Some people say, well, KJ, if you ain't good to yourself and if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be any good for your children. Well, I'll tell you what, the best thing that any parent can do to benefit themselves is to love, nurture, and keep safe their own flesh and blood. That's a reward in and of itself. And obviously, Ruby was too busy wanting to believe all this bullshit about her son Russell and Emma there. Russell has been, out of control. I wonder why Russell's been out of control, y'all. She says he's peeing, he's pooping, he's lying, he's stealing, and he's trying to run away. Well, I would too. If my mother told me that I was evil and that I had an evil spirit in me or something, you damn right I'd give anything in the world to get away from that bullshit. That is disgusting. It's verbal abuse. It traumatizes an early development in a child's brain when a parent does that. Yes, I think a parent should say, what you're doing is right or what you're doing is wrong. Folks, we're to set healthy boundaries. Obviously, Ruby and Jody looked at this like this was all about getting this evil spirits out of the children when they didn't even want to take a moment to get them out of themselves, which I don't believe the children had any evil spirits. You know what I think it was? I think they were starving them, mistreating them, abusing them. How else are they going to act that way? Emma's crying and wailing. Let me say that again. Emma is crying and wailing. And this is the mother writing this down in her journal. Let me tell y'all something. There have been times as a parent in my life when my kids got in trouble and I had to discipline them and they cried and stuff. Y'all, it tore me to pieces. It did. I don't want to see my children cry. I don't want to see them. I didn't want to see them anything like that. And I understand that tough love needs to be there. But y'all, this is called disgusting, excessive child abuse. You could not know what this has been like unless you were here. Well, I don't know who she's talking to in that. Who is she talking to? She says you could not know what this has been like unless you were here. So is she talking to herself? She's not addressing this to Jody. She's not addressing this to her husband. She's not addressing, it doesn't say God, you don't know what it's like or anything. It's just making that statement. Nobody knows what it's like for Ruby because Ruby is doing all this in darkness and in secret along with Jody. They're doing this together. And it's clear that this woman has got some serious evilness in her heart. Jody and I took Emma out to the desert. She refused to stay quiet and would scream and scream. Jody found a reservation cemetery, Chivnitz Cemetery. She went out in the heat, barefoot. Emma still tried to run. She screamed for another family, for water, food, care, love. Oh, Eve. Is it Eve or Emma? I guess it's Evie. Eve, excuse me, y'all. A manipulative ploy. You are loved. So she is sitting there listening to her daughter wailing and crying and saying, please give me some water, some food. But then the child even says a family, another family. And how she wants to run away. And Jody and Ruby there, they are absolutely everything that would naturally happen if a child is put in that abusive situation. They're looking at it as, oh, see how she's behaving? Does this echo? Wasn't it Lori calling people zombies? Tylee is a zombie. Tylee's not a zombie. They started to dehumanize these children just as they did in Chad and Lori's case. Even Melanie Gibb was awful about Tylee. And I'm sure others in that group are the same way. You can be damn sure Alex Cox and his stupid ass statement of one too many kids. These people would rather assign demon possession to a child than love them. Just think about that. They would rather do that. And the reason they would rather do that is because they don't want to take a look at themselves. They want to fall back on this foundational religious aspect that does not lead to any truth at all. All it does is lead to lies and death. Liza Joe says, do you think Jody was pressured to rat out her clients via her partner, the Saints, extortion? Thanks, KJ and Chad. Well, I've heard some of Jody Hillebrandt's phone calls there where she says she has a story to tell. And she also brings up, well, this seems like it was planned, that they were planning to take me out and all this and that. Y'all, none of us need to be a rocket scientist to understand that she could really do a lot of damage to that church. When she's standing outside that door, when they went in and pulled her out, it was so clear to me, y'all. If that would not have been her attorney on the phone, it would not have shocked me one bit if it would have been one of her bishops. I'll just leave it at that. So you got Ruby talking about, she's writing in her journal what her interaction with her daughter is. She says that her daughter says, yes, ma'am. And then Ruby says, I can help you find relief. You have told so many lies about me that you refuse to be obedient. Why do you keep being buddies with Satan? How could a mother do that to a child? How could a mother do that? The little girl says, I don't want to work. And Ruby says, don't you see it's because you follow Satan that you keep doing boxes? If you were humble, you'd be inside making pancakes with Julie and me, and make no mistake. Ruby knew how hungry her daughter was, and that word pancake held some weight for old Ruby. Ruby needs her ass stomped. Ruby needs to eat freaking prison food for the rest of her days. Which, by the way, y'all, her getting up at her sentencing, I just regret it. I love my family so much kind of crap. She knew what she had to do in hopes that she'll get earlier release than Jody Hillebrand. But if these parole people don't see the forest through the trees, she can act remorseful all she wants. The bottom line is I don't believe it. I don't believe she's a damn bit remorseful at all. And you know what? This whole idea that Jody Hillebrand thought she was doing the right thing, y'all, as soon as she's pulled out her door there, you can see consciousness of guilt the whole freaking time. Ruby and Jody had consciousness of guilt written all over their body language and everything else. Their silence spoke volumes. And then Ruby says about her little daughter there, agreed to sit on the park bench and think about her choices. Well, I wonder if Ruby thought about her choices. And I wonder if Ruby understands that all she gave a shit about was herself. She wasn't thinking about her husband, who, according to her religion, you're supposed to be with your husband and the two should become one. And you're supposed to stay in it, you know. But then again, Jody Hillebrand was the middleman so that these church members could get away from each other and it'd be okay in the eyes of the church. You see, the eyes of the church still wanted to gather those tithes, you know. They wanted the money. And so if they had a therapist come in there to say, well, it's just better that they divorce, then it was okay. It wouldn't be looked at wrong because they had their member psychologist, marriage counselor / life coach on the referral list for a long time there. Just check it off, so the people can continue to be members. People continue to, now this time the churches, they got a double whammy now. You got Kevin Franke, although he says he paid all the bills. Think about all these other separated and divorced couples. Now it's 2 kinds of tithing there. It ain't just one. They get 2 amounts of tithing. All right, so let's get to this part. It's Russell's birthday, says his mother. This mother, Ruby Franke, is putting in her journal that it is her son's birthday. And he doesn't even know what month it is. And we all know why he doesn't know what month it is. In her freaked out shit, she's thinking it's because he's demon possessed or a spawn of Satan. And this isn't her son. And she's got to rid her son. She's got to exorcise that demon out of her son. And it's his birthday, a little boy's birthday. Well, wonder what she got him for his birthday. Because she sure as hell didn't get him a cake and food. Emma and Russell have been in so much deviant behavior, they won't control their bodily functions. Y'all, that is child abuse. What are we talking about bodily functions? Are we talking about urinating and defecating? Because they're demon possessed, so they can't pee and poop the way she'd want them to. Hold on just a minute. Somebody's at the door. Hey, I'm on live stream. You can come in, but I'm on live stream. I'm in the middle of this, okay? Cool. So anyway, Carrie Ann says she sure didn't look remorseful in the body cams when she acted like a little kid pounding and not saying a word, stone-faced and statue body language. I watched her oldest son celebrate his mom, Ruby, going to prison on YouTube. I loved it, says Dee Dee Sunshine. Teresa says she knew immediately she was in trouble. You could see it on her face. Just Me says she knows how to play for an audience. And also Just Me says did it out of evilness, torturing that baby. Well, I'll tell you what. With knowing what these journal writings say now, I would love to sit here and say that Jody was the head of the snake and Jody brainwashed Ruby into child abusing her own children. But now I know, and y'all, really, it comes down to personal responsibility, does it not? I mean, if you make a conscious decision to leave your husband and he's all willing, obviously he doesn't have a problem. Yes, some would say, well, KJ, Kevin, he thought that he was getting professional advice from Jody. He was working on his pornography addiction. He wanted to be a better father. The whole end goal was to get his family back together. Y'all, that whole year he was away. I mean, how long does it take? I mean, he says that in that police interview, he says just a couple of weeks before the interview that they were meeting so that she could get him to sign over the car titles that were in his name. I mean, what is this supposed to be? Oh, Kevin's like, oh yes, Ruby, I'm going to give you the cars that I paid for and everything that's in my name. I'm gonna sign them over to you, Ruby, because Ruby, material things don't matter. I'm showing that I cherish you, Ruby. Folks, it is not about, oh, I'm going to give you all this, Ruby, because I want to show you that materialism doesn't mean anything to me. Materialism don't mean squat. It's when Kevin Franke did not stand up and say, listen here, woman, I love you and I know we've got problems. I've got problems. You've got problems. But the bottom line is we've got to stay together for this family. That's the way God intended it to be. We can continue to go down this road with your buddy Jody Hillebrand, your professional guru there all you want. But the bottom line is I'm not leaving my family. I love my children and I love you, Ruby. And if you want to file for divorce, just go for it. The bottom line is I'm not leaving because I'm a man with hair on my balls. There you go. There you go. He was working on his porn masturbate addiction all by himself, says Dee Dee Sunshine. You know what? We don't even know if he actually had a major porn addiction or not. You know, how we've all figured it out, just the littlest thing. And they blow it out of proportion. That one guy, I forgot his name. Y'all know who I'm talking about. He's on that personal crusade against Jody Hillebrand. He said that she had all these husbands believing that they were porn addicts, drug addicts, everything else. That they were not good husbands and all. I mean, it was just, Jody absolutely was a man hater. And she absolutely didn't take her much at all to rip Ruby and Kevin apart. So back to Russell's birthday. And the fact that he doesn't even know what month it is. And Ruby wants to say that they won't control their bodily functions. Y'all, that's awful. And then she says they are both furious. These are small children that are furious that their selfish, sinful lifestyle is being intervened upon. Now, let's just stop there for a minute. Selfish, sinful lifestyle. I don't know about y'all, but when you have small children, as a parent, you create the environment. You're the one that gives the boundaries. You're the one that creates the environment. So if there was, which I don't believe, but if there was a selfish, sinful lifestyle that these small children were living, she provided it to them. She's the one that put her children on a freaking YouTube channel for several years. She's the one that built all that shit up. And the bottom line is she's the one that has built herself a selfish, sinful lifestyle by not being with her husband, not having faith in her own life and her own children, and putting her whole life, really, her mental stability, the whole 9 yards, in the hands of someone like Jody Hillebrand. I told Russell he emulates a snake. Could y'all imagine a mother saying that to her child? He slithers, he sneaks around looking for opportunities when no one is watching, and then he scurries. Well, I'll tell you what, If little Russell was scurrying around, sneaking around, he was probably trying to find food and water. And even if that wasn't the case, y'all, many of y'all are parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. Children are like that sometimes. They're curious. They are learning. Their minds are developing. If he wants to emulate the Savior, Ruby says about her little boy there, then he needs to be 100% obedient. No wavering, no hiding. Well, I'm going to make an announcement, okay? OKJ's going to make an announcement. When she says to emulate the Savior, first of all, a Christian is to be Christ-like. And I see nothing, absolutely nothing, in Jody Hillebrand or Ruby Franke that is Christ-like. And if the whole purpose and goal is to emulate the Savior, that they need to be 100% obedient, folks, here's the announcement. Nobody in the world is 100% obedient. They might have stretches of it. And there might be people on here right now that say, KJ, I'm a pretty good, honest person about myself, KJ. I feel like I've been 100% obedient to God. Well, that's you. That's your views. That's your life. I'm telling you right now that nobody, it can't just be I'm 100% obedient in my works and the way that I treat people. It's also in here. And who is this damn hooker? Ruby Franke and Jody Hillebrand. Who are they to say that they're 100% obedient? There's nothing 100% obedient about hurting a child. God forbid that anybody believe that's what he wants. Because that's not. All Ruby and Jody wanted was the power. That's what they wanted, just as Chad and Lori wanted it. And the only way to feel that adrenaline rush, or that whatever it was, that high feeling that they feel, they're so haughty, and they're all out there, they're the king and queen of the 144,000, they're better than everyone else, is to see other people suffer. Because when you see the suffering, and you know you're the reason they're suffering, that is sick, it's disgusting, and it lines right up with how these people act and do. So Ruby, with all this inside information about, truth and distortion, she's learned this from Jody. And let me just be clear. For anyone to say that she was brainwashed, she made a choice to embrace that truth and distortion shit, okay? She didn't have to. And at any time, Lori and Chad were playing around in their twisted serial killer role-playing stuff, at any time, Chad and Lori could have said, no, we can't do it like this. Let's veer around. Yes, we talked about murdering the children and Tammy, but really, that was just role-playing. Let's do something that's not illegal. Go get on a yoga mat and flop up and down. But Ruby says in her journal that she has seen, y'all, a pattern. And isn't that word pattern used a lot? Haven't we heard that word pattern a lot? Yes, we've heard it in the Chad and Lori Daybell case about, there's a pattern. I'm hiding in the cleft of a rock, and it says that in Scripture, so it's okay for me. I'm hiding in the cleft of a rock, which translates, no pun intended to Lori, I'm hiding because I have a consciousness of guilt because I'm a piece of crap to murder my own children. But Ruby says about this pattern that she sees. All day, Emma makes rhymes about my mom starves me and calls it fasting. My mom won't lift a finger to bring me food because all she does is lay on the bed and eat brownies. My mom says she's the most loving mom in the world, Blah, blah, blah. If I can't even go home, then what's the point of being obedient? I'm gonna just run away. Can you imagine a little girl saying stuff like that? And some of it has to be true, y'all. And this goes back to what I read earlier. Ruby couldn't stand it that her daughter there was saying truths about her. And Ruby didn't want to accept what her daughter was saying about, Mom, I need to eat, I need food. You're taking me out here in the desert. You're doing all these things to me. If I can't even go home, then what's the point of being obedient? Says this little girl. Go home. In other words, she was over at Jody Hillebrandt's where they could, turn it up a notch on the child abuse. Get them far away from other people. There was all kinds of people at Ruby and Kevin's house there around that neighborhood that had called DCS time and time again, and nobody did shit. But this way, it's just like Chad and Lori. Lori, she had to get the kids away from everyone and put them in a place where, that nobody knew them. I mean, briefly send JJ to school just so she could keep that money flowing. Didi Sunshine said he's porn addiction. During his interview with police, I added masturbate. Well, let me tell you what, y'all. Everyone looks at different things that people do in their life. I'm just going to say this. This is just my view. Masturbation. Come on, y'all. It really all comes down to what you're thinking during it, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm just gonna pass over that right there. So, yeah, just me pushing them into cactuses. And y'all, when I saw they showed the blurry part of little Russell on the ambulance gurney there, and you could see his legs, y'all, it wouldn't have been much longer than they would have been brought out in body bags. And I guess this goes back to, well, what's worse, right? I mean, we know what happened to Tylee and JJ's worse, right? But what I'm saying is that if somehow this wouldn't have ended the way it did, this would have just been another example of these tragedies and these terrible criminal acts happening. And I got to thinking about it. I was like, well, did we see any evidence of Lori doing child abuse on JJ or Tylee before they were murdered? And really, what does it matter now, right? But I'm just trying to look at this. I would say that taking JJ away from his service dog, taking, the situation with his dad, Charles Vallow, all of those things was very, very traumatizing to JJ. It doesn't have to be, child abuse doesn't have to be, standing out with no shoes on in hot desert conditions. And Tylee, I don't know. Oh, yeah, Liza Joe. Can you believe Jody had an Airbnb booking while torturing kids in the basement? I wouldn't be surprised. Y'all, I know this is a stretch, but we don't know who these Airbnb people were. For all we know, they were joining along in it. Can you put it past them? Could you put it past them at all? If things like this can happen, and it has been proven to be factual, is any other theory, even if it sounds a little weird or out there, I mean, is it weird or out there for me to say that Melanie Gibb and David Warwick knew what was going to go on that weekend and took part in it? Don't you find it interesting that we never heard anything from Melanie Gibb and her East Idaho news extravaganza about JJ scratching Chad's face? Don't you find that interesting? That it just comes out in Lori's trial? Because I think Melanie Gibb knows how much child abuse was going on. And Melanie Gibb has to be a good state's witness. That's just an opinion. Right. Lori definitely did some severe mental abuse to those precious kiddos. You're right, Carrie Ann. You're right. I mean, it wasn't quite a week being in Idaho before they snuffed Tylee out. And, you know, we've saw these, I don't know, y'all, these puff movies. What is it? Oxygens and everything, where you saw this actress playing Lori, you know, standing there in her living room saying to Tylee, you know, you're not the Tylee I remember. We don't know what was said. We don't know how Tylee was treated in the end. We just know she was murdered brutally. We also know that Chad Daybell never, from what we know, never physically abused his children. I mean, his children grew up. I guarantee you that this evil seed that was always been in Chad Daybell wasn't going to be able to do anything to those kids while Tammy Daybell was around. So, I don't know. Hey, Artie and AC, how are you? Just Me says, imagine strangers having more empathy than your own family. Well, y'all, all I know is that Ruby Franke, whether you are on the side that she was brainwashed and maybe she can be rehabilitated and you yourself saw that Ruby Franke had remorse, I'm looking at you right now. She's as evil as Jodi Hillebrand, if not more, because those were her children. And if she thought in her mind that the actions that she spoke about in her journals and the things that were found out, whether it's duct tape, whether whatever it was, holding, kicking one of the kids or putting the head underwater and all that was for their own good. I mean, really, y'all, you think about every option in the world that a parent has to be able to help a child that they think maybe need a little help. Well, guess what, y'all? Jodi Hillebrand and Ruby Franke took it upon themselves to absolutely cause physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual pain to those children in order to puff themselves up, to make them feel like they were something. They wanted to be in control, just as Chad and Lori wanted to be in control. And y'all, is it so far-fetched to say that Chad and Lori got away with murdering children, taking their life away? And the kind of reward that Chad and Lori must have thought they had for doing that in the eyes of their own demon that's possessing them, that this was something good. This was better. This is better to murder those children than to seek out any other help. Isn't it interesting that Jodi and Ruby and Chad and Lori, if they thought these family members had these demons or the spawn of Satan, did they go to their freaking church? Did they go to the church and have a meeting and say, please help my child? No, they didn't. They didn't. Oh, well, Ruby could say, well, Jodi's a professional. And, Jodi'd been taking care of Russell now for the last couple of years. No wonder if he was showing signs of anything not normal. Jodi was systematically, could you imagine a child being used and manipulated like that by a professional, but then standing there and looking up and there's your mother. Your mother standing there approving of it. How devastating, how unsafe. Russell and his little sister there, they felt no safety whatsoever. If they couldn't turn to their own mother, they sure wasn't going to see their dad protect them. For all they know, they've been away from their dad, never seen them, talk to them on the phone, text messages. According to Kevin Frankie at the police interview, not one word to his own children. Why should they think that their dad is going to help them against their own mother? Beach Lady says they're both evil, but Jody was evil for 15 years. RDNAC says Chud is getting gray in jail. Well, RDNAC, I thought Chad was a translated Ben. Y'all remember, Lori and Zulema and them, my periods. Our periods were that we're turning back the clock of time. We're getting younger. No, Chad is getting more zombie-fied. And he's probably needing, really, to limber up. You know what I mean by limber up? He's going to have to bend over a little bit more for old Bubba when he goes to prison. Whether it's death row or life in prison, Chad better start getting limbered up. He better start understanding to stay as calm and relaxed as possible when those things happen as he's bent over. You know what I mean, too. He better stay, because if he doesn't, it's gonna be a lot more painful for Chad. But let me just say this, y'all. Chad Daybell, we're going to find out. Because you look at it like this, okay? Just look at it like this. There's Jody Hillebrand and there's Ruby Frankie. And Ruby Frankie had the children. And you either accept this thing that Jody Hillebrand brainwashed Ruby's mind. You would have to also believe that Chad Daybell brainwashed Lori into doing that to her own children, which we know is a crock of shit. What if Ruby was on board with Jody in more ways than one? You know what I mean? And maybe this was about experimentation over their spiritual beliefs, that perhaps they've been taught that the pain and suffering of children is something that will give them more power. Well, I mean, does that sound crazy? No, because any way you look at that statement that I just said, they wanted control over those children. And every time a child abuse act happens in this world, y'all, 9 times out of 10, it's about control. And having that rush of, I am the one in control. I am the one that says this is what it is. And if you don't get on board with what it is, you small child whose brain is still developing, then I'm going to punish you. But if we go back to what was said, the most disturbing thing about all these journal writings was when she says to begin a separation from evil towards God, all the darkness needs exposed to the light. So I'm going to try to break that down. To begin a separation from evil towards God. So she doesn't think that her children are anywhere near God. She believes that the evil is in her children. And she's trying to find a way to get those children away from the evil and go towards God. I'll tell you this. There's one thing that is surefire when it comes to children. And that is all Ruby had to do, if she really wanted a separation from evil toward God, is to love and nurture and make her kids feel safe and just to be patient and loving. That's all she needed to do, because those children are not going to be the same child as they grow up. If people think that if a child, first of all, I don't see how a child can fully really understand evil anyway. I guess Russell and his little sister there, I guess they know what evil is now because they seen it from their own damn mother and this Jody Hillebrand. So, I mean, it's that simple, but to say all the darkness needs exposed to the light, well, I'll tell you, it took a little boy being able to get out of his bindings, his duct tape bindings, and run to a neighbor's house. You know, that's all it took to expose the darkness that was going over there at Jody Hillebrand's compound. That place, when she says to that police officer that she does not have the combination to that safe down in the basement there, she's so full of shit. She's a liar. She is a pure, unadulterated liar. And folks, make no mistake, everyone, regardless of what you believe, if you're a religious person, there are all kinds of people in the world with all kinds of religious beliefs. But you've got to ask the question, what comes of that? Worshiping your deity, your God, what fruit comes from that? Well, all I've seen is murder, child abuse, lying, no respect for authority, self-preservation, self-centeredness, spiritual narcissism. And yes, I believe there is a such thing as spiritual narcissism. But it sure ain't coming from God Almighty. Since murder is on the same par as masturbating in Mormonism, it's no big deal to kill or abuse your kids. Well, I'll tell you what, y'all. Does anyone believe that Ruby Franke or Jody Hillebrand there are going to lose their membership to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? What about Zulema or Melanie Gibb? We don't even know about Lori. We know about Chad. But, I mean, you know, this isn't, I've been a sinner or I've been backslidden for some time, and please help me, my organized religion, please help me get back on track. As Lori said, you know, if you don't let me have a temple recommend, I'm going to commit murder shit, right? Marvin says, on a lighter note, I love you, your family, and the Rays. Well, I love you too, Marvin. Sometimes when y'all say those beautiful things and I'm in the middle of talking trash, I need to hear it, right? I need to hear it. They ignore, says Jewelbox News. They obey the law of the land. BYU will lose their rag in Jody. Well, I'll tell you what, y'all. If they give those children back to Kevin Franke, I just don't think he abandoned them. And he's got a good card to play. He can say, well, I was under professional care. I was only doing what the professional told me to do. He had every excuse in the world. Every excuse. Marvin says, are people born selfish? Yes. Yes, people are. It's called self-preservation. Outside of religion, spirituality, anything you want, all babies, they're born, they're very resilient. I mean, there are babies that have been caught up in tornadoes and lived to tell about it, found in a tree and all that. They're physically resilient. As a human being, we are. We have a selfishness. All of us do. But how extreme does it have to be? Does Ruby Franke need to be so selfish about her own whatever, however she's living her life, that it's at the expense of her own children? To say that good works need to be painful. That's what Ruby said in her journal. Good works, good things, good works need to be painful. I'm sure some of them are, but I'll tell you what, there are millions upon millions of good works that a person can do that is nourishing, that's healthy. It doesn't necessarily, it's not painful. I mean, obviously, my belief is that we're all born in sin. I'm a sinner saved by grace, and anytime I choose to do the right thing over sinning, to me, that's a miracle. Because I wasn't born, I was born in sin. That's all, I know. But if Ruby Franke and Jody Hillebrand thinks that they can take children and get whatever it is out of them to make them 100% obedient, they're not living in reality. A child is going to make mistakes. That's part of growing up. Children are not always going to do what a parent wants them to do. Does that mean because a child is disobedient or lies to a parent or something that somehow they got a demon in them? Give me a break. That's all part of growing up. Nobody can say, oh, I raised the perfect child. That child never did a single thing wrong. And if you can say that and say, honestly, KJ, I raised my child and they didn't never lie to me. They didn't never do anything wrong. Well, I'll tell you what. It's what goes on in here. And a child's developing brain growing up. We don't know what goes on in the mind. And the bottom line for my belief is to look upon somebody and lust after them, just to look at them and say, damn, I'd like a piece of that action. I might as well be committing adultery. So all I'm saying is that for Ruby and Jody to say that somehow what they were doing to these children was actually helping them, all it was doing was continuing to make it worse. Just as Lori told Melanie Gibb when she came that weekend that JJ's acting stranger and stranger. Well, maybe he was. Maybe it was because he didn't have his medication. Maybe it's because his sister wasn't there. Maybe he was still wondering about his father. Maybe he missed his service dog. Maybe he missed being around other people. Maybe because he's autistic, he was going to act differently. I mean, obviously, if it really did happen that he scratched Chad Daybell on the face, how much more different do you need it for the little guy? He was treated awful by his mother. Oh, I know. She put him on just as Cresha K. Easton was talking about last night. What is the purpose of putting that little man on a ride days before he's murdered by himself? What's that all about? I'll tell you what that's all about. That's making herself feel better because she has a serious consciousness of guilt, or even seeing him on that ride by himself, thinking to herself, it's okay, we're going to get that demon out of you, even though in the back of her heart and mind, she knew nothing was wrong with her son. She was just ready to continue. Just as Ruby Franke was continuing to use Jody Hillebrand as a crutch, Lori used Chad as a crutch. And it just, doesn't it work out just perfectly for Ruby? Ruby can come out weeks later, even though we've heard her phone calls, and know that she was still on board with Jody. And I'm sure her lawyer told her, you've got to start acting like Jody got you into all this. You've got to act like the victim here, Ruby. And Lori has played the victim from the get-go. I mean, she can murder her own children. She can help conspire to murder Tammy. She murdered Charles Vallow with the help of Alex. But she's going to find a way to play the victim. Just Me says it's our jobs as parents to love and protect our babies. And there's nothing at all, y'all, no matter how you look at it. I mean, I'm like one of these, like, what would she be standing there and seeing her son hogtied with handcuffs and duct tape
How can she even think that's okay? Under any circumstance, if they truly felt like he was the spawn of Satan, that he was demon possessed, I will say it again. Why not call your bishop or church authorities or someone to help? Give me a break. Give me a break.
Just Me says, off topic, did you see that Summer Shiflett is going to CrimeCon? Well, I mean, just me. There'll be all kinds of people that's going to want to hear everything that Summy has to say. Just as, Adam Cox and Unky there. I don't give a shit about Summer Shiflett. How about that? And some of y'all be like, KJ, that's hateful. She's a victim's family member. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you something about Summer Shiflett. She knew her sister was going down the road, and Summer Shiflett also knew that Lori was not taking care of those children. Even before Chad. When Lori left Charles and all of that, I don't see any of Lori's family stepping up and saying, you know what, Lori, you've been gone for 58 days. We need to take the children for a while until you can figure out how things are going. I know, armchair quarterbacking. So what's she going to say? What's she going to say at CrimeCon that she hasn't already said? I mean, we heard the jail phone call. We heard her in the secret recording of her slimy attorney Garrett Smith there with Rob Wood. We've heard everything Summer Shiflett has to say. Did Summer Shiflett, did she, I don't even want to go there with her anymore. Liza Joe says, I wonder how closely related Lori's father is to Utah Governor Cox. Maybe they're cousins. Well, I don't know about that, Liza Joe, but I do know in researching it that he's run for office several times. He's always suing the federal government. Right, just me. Her text messages said everything I needed to know. Right. I mean, okay, y'all, here it is. If I'm wrong to feel this way about Summer Shiflett, so is this like, okay, let me say something different, more positive about Summer Shiflett. Let me do a narrative about Summer Shiflett that's different than what I just expressed to y'all. I myself can't find anything to latch on to. Because, you know what? Thanksgiving rolled around and Christmas rolled around. And Summer, did she buy presents for Tylee and JJ? Did she invite Lori and them for Thanksgiving or Christmas or anything like that? Did Summy and Tylee have the same birthdays or around the same birthdays? Did she check in on Ty there? Hi, Just DD. Hi, Julie Cole. Yeah, just me. Playing the victim and raking in the money, right? As many of y'all also know, unrelated to what we're talking about, Becky Hill. Remember Becky Hill, the Alex Murdaugh trial? She resigned, and it had nothing to do with them investigating her because she wanted to have a book deal, and she was investigated for messing with jurors and all this and that. Oh, this resignation had absolutely nothing to do with it. Give me a break. They should have threw her ass out the day after. The day after they said that Alex Murdaugh would not get another trial. She lied on the stand. That is not a competent elected official, and she was elected. And I feel bad for the voters that voted her in. She's an elected official. Not only did she resign or say she wasn't going to run for re-election, she resigned immediately. she wants to dress it up at her news conference, and y'all be sure to catch that. All you have to do is type in on YouTube, Becky Hill's statement, and she comes out in front of the courthouse, and she acts like, at my time here in Colleton County, we've had updated technology. You can get your passports here, and all of the good things that these special servants give, and just like, reading off the side of a cereal box to her. She's not going to address, because her attorney's sitting right there, anything about the real reason. But then again, the real reason why she resigns, she'll never explain that. But we all know why, because she got busted lying on the stand. She perjured herself, and nobody gives a shit as long as she goes away. Just Me said that Summer had the chance to be Tylee's voice and didn't say a word. I'm not interested in anything she has to say now. Just venting, says Just Me. Fancy Nancy says, Becky Hill, go to Hades. They want to be called saints, not Mormons. Thank you, says Liza Joe. What is going to be interesting to me of all of this, and again, to bring up Ruby Franke and Jodi Hillebrand isn't just because that's what everyone's talking about here lately. I'm trying to see through it through application. Does anyone really know for sure who the mastermind of the abuse of these children between Jodi and Ruby were? Or is it just it doesn't matter who the mastermind was, because Ruby was the mother, i.e. was Chad and Lori, who was the mastermind. We've been down this road. It was Lori's children. Are we going to find out in the trial? Just as we found out with Jodi, that Jodi had Ruby under her spell, which I don't believe one bit. Are we going to find out in this trial that the state's going to put forth evidence showing that Chad had Lori under his thumb? Or are we going to find out that, just for sake of argument, what if we would have seen journal writings from Lori? We saw the text messages. Is JJ at 0 yet? Okay, that says enough. That speaks volumes. But if we would have had something of Lori in a journal talking about these situations, what I see in Ruby Franke's journals is that she does not want to, healthy-wise, spiritual-wise, common sense-wise, to raise her children in proper, healthy, safe ways. She wants an excuse to take all her shit out on her own kids. Was she like this with the ones that's already left home? Or did Jodi turn things up a notch for old Rube? As long as Ruby had a professional standing there, then Ruby could do whatever she wanted to cause the pain in her children. And make no mistake, y'all, this is exactly how I feel about it. I'm not going to speak nothing else after this. In that moment when Jodi Hillebrand is taken out of the house and she's standing there with the phone, and those long moments of silence, I realize now more than ever that's really what it came down to. Is to take those innocent children and cause them physical, mental, and emotional pain for their own demon-possessed benefit. Somehow, some way, because of the way that they believe, Jodi Hillebrand's jail phone calls, the Spirit spoke to me. The Spirit. What the freaking? What kind of spirit is going to say go hurt these children or murder children? We're talking about evil spirits here. And these people want to pretend that that's what? What spirit? Because it sure as heck ain't the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit would never want a child to be harmed. Jesus said it. Jesus is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Anyone that harms these children should have a millstone put around their neck and thrown out in the sea. How much more reality does anybody need about how God feels about children? They are the most in the kingdom of heaven. It even says that unless you are like a little child, you will not see heaven. So they want to take Ruby and Jody, Chad, Lori, whoever in these crazy ass cult people. They want to take that innocence, that beautiful innocence, that gift of God, and they want to destroy it. They want to cause misery and pain to it. They want to knock a child who is innocent off the beauty that they can give this world, the love, the destiny, the wonderful things that innocence brings. They want to not only destroy that, but if they can't destroy it like Chad and Lori did with Tylee and JJ, they want to cause pain and they want to warp those children. They want to warp those children, and the demons that possess them are more than happy to tell anyone this was the plan. This was the plan. To destroy innocence, to hurt children, to be able to build up that demon by destroying innocence or causing it physical, emotional, mental pain. That's their route. That's how they go. Innocence. The innocence of Charles Vallow. The innocence of Tammy Daybell. The innocence of Brandon Boudreaux. Whatever. As many of you know, Chad Daybell is fixing to face it all. And John Pryor is going to have to come up with some defense. And it's my hope that the underbelly that I see in Jody Hillebrand and Ruby Franke, I've seen it with them, along with Lori the hussy. Chad Daybell's fixing to be exposed. Children who are innocent, they have no darkness in them. The darkness comes in through the adults or the environment around. Things that happen in life. Chad Daybell holds darkness. Ruby Franke holds darkness. Lori holds darkness. They hold evil. And the only ones that have the selfish, sinful lifestyle are the ones that are sitting in jail going to prison. They had the sinful, selfish lifestyle. Those children had no choice of what kind of lifestyle that they were going to have. Tylee and JJ had no choice. All they could do is cling to the mother that they loved so dearly. But when you've got children who are like Ruby's children, that the little girl is saying, I want another family. My mother doesn't love me. I want to run away. Is it so far-fetched to think that maybe those thoughts entered into Tylee's head at some point before she was murdered? And JJ being autistic, maybe he was oblivious, but then again, from what I understand, he absolutely knew a lot and could see a lot. And that's exactly, to me, why Lori and Chad, not only for the money, but they wanted to snuff that innocence out. That gift to the world. Will this little girl and little boy of Ruby's, will they be able to get through the trauma of all this and be able to continue down this journey of the love that God has for everyone, and that these children will grow up to be happy and healthy members of society who have a deep faith. One can only pray for that. The bottom line is we'll never know with Tylee and JJ, and we might not never know with this little girl. And is it Emma or Evie? I don't remember, because I haven't really followed the names of the children too much. I know one of them's name's Russell, but it's sad. Just Me says whatever's done in darkness will be brought to light. Liza Joe says the saints make me very angry my entire life. I appreciate your educating so many, KJ. Well, y'all have educated me. So I'm going to close now. I will get back with y'all as soon as I hear of anything else going on. We're on it, y'all. We're fixing to be, the trial of Chad Daybell's fixing to happen. And because I have been tapering off, and because I have been doing these advanced settings, things have been a little different. Again, I am going to post old vids from the catalog on and off just to do a little throwback. But there's reasons behind it. So y'all take care. Leave your comments. I love you all. We'll get back together soon, and keep on looking.